Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the here and now. Welcome to this moment. It's so good to be with you. When you're entering, you can share where you're from. I have a story to share with you, as you can see by the title. From last night, this is the Brian Piergrossi Podcast. For those who are, yes, I'm okay. You can see me right now. I'm alive. So what happened was, I was driving from Maryland to Asheville, North Carolina, my home base. Been gone for like 10 days or so. And it's a long drive. A lot of strange things happened yesterday. A lot of peculiar, bizarre situations and circumstances. And so the trip was delayed and ended up being like 12 hours on the road, right? So I'm within like 5 minutes of Asheville after driving for like 12 hours. And I take the exit to get back, and there's a deer. Now, I've seen a lot of deer, right? And especially in the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains. I've seen a lot of deer on the road before. And usually they kind of see me driving and they sort of don't go onto the road, right? So I see the deer. I'm going pretty fast. I would say 65 miles an hour. And the deer sees me. I see the deer sees me, right? And this deer is so beautiful. Like I've always felt deer were so beautiful, you know. So I see the deer sees me, and there's this like terror in the deer, and there's a terror in me, right? I don't want to hit the deer. The deer doesn't want to get hit. So I'm hitting the brakes. I'm like trying to swerve out of the way at the deer. Now this part's a little bit hazy, but it seemed like instead of going off the road, the deer actually makes a move towards me, right? Towards the direction I'm in. That's how it looked to me. So I'm kind of trying to veer to the right away from the deer, and I'm thinking, deer, go to the left. But I veer to the right, and the deer makes a move to the right, and massive impact. Massive impact. I'm hitting the brakes as hard as I can. I see the deer hit the car. This is not one of those fun stories I usually tell, by the way. But I think there's lessons to be had here that are really valuable for all of us. So that's why I'm sharing. And we're just going to go as long as we go today. No 10 minutes. However long it takes, it takes. So there's a massive impact with the deer. I see the deer's body seem like 10 feet, fly up in the air like 10 feet and just flop down on the ground to the side. I hit the brakes as hard as I can. Car comes to a stop. And then there's this moment. And I think most of you are familiar with this moment at some point in your life. there's this moment where it's like, what just happened? Am I still alive? Did I die? Am I injured? What happened to my car? I know the deer is dead for sure, so there's no question about that. But there's definitely a mourning about that. There's a feeling of, did I just kill a deer, right? A being that was alive, that wanted to stay alive, and is no longer alive, right? And a beautiful being, just a really beautiful being. So it's like, did I do that? Why did I do that? Was I in some space of neglect? Was I in some space of not being present, not being responsible? It didn't seem like it. It seemed like I was just driving, and then all of a sudden it's dark, and then there was a deer that's there, right? So all this stuff is happening. But the first thing is like, am I alive? Yes. It seems like I'm alive. Because in that moment, you don't know, is the car going to like overturn? Am I going to swerve into like a tree or into another vehicle? Right? So it could have been a lot worse. Right? But I'm alive. I didn't hit anybody else. I don't seem to be injured either. It seems like I'm fine. And yet, there's all of this, the best way I can describe it is like fight or flight juice. Like just like flowing through the body. All this adrenaline, all this like energy is like flowing through the body. This is what happens when you're in like a trauma state, right? So what I experienced is very minimal compared to what a lot of other people experience, right? So I'm starting to think about like people who've been physically assaulted, people who've been physically abused, sexually abused, raped. They've watched someone get killed. They've watched someone be murdered. They've watched someone be tortured. They've been tortured. They've been in military zones, war zones, right? So we have this like trauma that is a part of the human experience, right? So what I experience is a lot more minimal than what other people have experienced. And when I even saying some of the situations, I can remember times in my life where I experienced certain situations like that as well, right? So it's a part of being a human being. It's a part of being alive. So we'll get back to that. I'm going to get back to the moment. But I realize that I'm okay physically. I seem to be fine. The deer's dead. What happened to my car? Right? So I don't know that. So I call Annie, who's like, I'm like 5 minutes away. I almost made it. And Annie was super, super supportive and super, just really grateful for her. I think she's on here right now. So super grateful for you, love, and thank you for listening and being supportive. And so one thing that's valuable, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but I want to talk about the trauma. And one thing that's valuable is to talk about it. Because we experience trauma and we don't talk about it. It's so essential to have a space to communicate the feelings that are inside you, the emotions that are inside you, the beliefs that are inside you, the stories that are inside you, the physical sensations that are inside you, to be able to communicate what happens. Because it's all about moving the energy, because you're in a state of fight or flight, right? And you're in a state of, to a certain degree, shock. Like, the shock comes because this is absolutely not what I expected to have happen, right? This is absolutely not what I thought was going to happen. This was not the way I thought my night was going to go, right? So anytime something happens that's completely outside the trajectory of what you thought was going to happen with your mind, there's a state of shock. right? And it doesn't necessarily matter if it's good or bad. A lot of times we don't receive things that are good because we're too shocked, right? We freeze in the moment. It's like I was shocked. I'm shocked, right? So I get out. I look at my car, and the entire front end is smashed in. So my car insurance is a minimal car insurance. I have the minimum, so I don't have the full coverage. So the payment will be out of my pocket, right? So, and that's because a few different reasons. I don't need to get into the whole thing, but that's the way it is. So I noticed that, and then I notice the stories, right? I start to notice the stories. This isn't fair. Like, why this happened to you? You don't deserve this. Like, you were just driving down the road. You were just minding your business. Like, why are you the one that this happens to? This is going to cost so much money. The amount of money this is going to cost is going to be unbelievable. Like, you had this intention and vision and goal of, like, generating income, and now you're losing what you have. This is going to set you back so much. So all these stories are running, right? So it goes from like a physical safety to a physical survival to a financial survival. And what's so fascinating to observe is it hits us in the exact same way. When it comes to finances, like, that's our means of survival, we think, right? We presume in this world, like, we can't survive without money. So when it comes to money, there's this survival fear that arises inside us that's literally like we're going to die, right? So I'm watching all that. I'm observing all that. And this energy, as I move back as I make it home and I come back, this energy of this fight or flight juice is like still active. So it's like the body has its programming, it has its conditioning, right? So I'm fine physically, I'm fine, but this fight or flight juice is like still like coursing through the body, right? So it's like, even though the situation is over, it's not over in the body. The body is still activated. The body is still in a state of shock, in a state of trauma from the situation. So, a couple things to inquire into at this point. One, how do we deal with trauma? Right? How do we deal with trauma? Two, the question comes into my consciousness, which is the question I always invite you all to ask, and it's the question I always have alive inside me. And initially I didn't have answers, but as I keep the question alive, the answers slowly over the past 24 hours start to come. And the question is, okay, this situation seems like it's bad, right? It seems like it's negative. It's definitely not what I wanted or expected or intended. And what is the opportunity here? What is the opportunity here? Where do I find an opportunity in this situation? And that question is alive, and that question, it's almost like you live in that question. Like you're living in the question. Everything you encounter, every circumstance you encounter, every situation you encounter, what is the opportunity here? So, a appreciation, right? I'm alive. I'm not physically harmed or damaged. I appreciate the people that love me and support me. I appreciate my partner. I appreciate just life, just like every moment. There's nothing that's guaranteed. It's like every moment's actually a gift. Every moment's actually it's a gift to share love and receive love. And there's an opportunity to share with all of you, right? So there's an opportunity to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be genuine, and to relate to a human experience, right? Something that's universal, and to provide lessons that I've discovered, that I've realized, wisdom that's coming through that can be of benefit to hundreds of people, thousands of people over time. So that's a tremendous opportunity, right? But it's only an opportunity if I take the opportunity, which is what I'm doing right now. If I don't take the opportunity, then it doesn't arise. If you see a chance, take it, right? It's a line from an old Steve Winwood song. If you see a chance, take it. So I'm taking the chance right now to share with all of you what has opened up for me with this experience. Then I started thinking about my car. And I started thinking about the money. So I got one estimate this morning to repair, and it's he's saying it's at least $4,500 and probably more to repair the vehicle, which is not money that I had anticipating spending today, right? And I don't know what's going to happen, right? I'm just exploring the options. I'm thinking, what's the opportunity? What's the opportunity? And an idea is starting to form, which is that this is really expensive, right? This is a major cost to get this car repaired. What if I sell the car as it is, in the condition that's in? Because it still drives, just the whole front is smashed in, right? But I can still drive it. What if I sell the car as it is, and instead of paying out $5,000, maybe I get paid $5,000? That's an interesting, because this car is kind of, I really love, it's a Volkswagen Beetle, black Volkswagen Beetle. And I love this car. There's something about, I think particularly us as Americans, like we in our cars so much that kind of become characters in our life. We become, pretty deeply connected to them in a way. So we've had a lot of experiences together. I love this car, and yet it's kind of small, right? It's kind of tight. Like there's really not a back seat. There's a little bit of a back seat. Maybe this is a chance to upgrade to a car that's more in alignment for me. Maybe. And then there's the trauma part, right? There's the sense of being present with the body, and then you start communicating with the body. So the body is conditioned. You gotta remember, the body is conditioned over millions of years, right? And it's a collective conditioning. So the body is conditioned for fight or flight. The body is conditioned for emergency situations, right? So there's what feels like an emergency situation, an urgent emergency situation, all these hormones and adrenaline, all this stuff starts flooding the body, right? And the body mind system feels like it's in danger. And you can carry that for years, for decades. You can carry this trauma, and so many people are, right? We're carrying this trauma state. So you can carry it for a day, you can carry it for a week, you can carry it for a month, you can carry it for a year, you can carry it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And you can start looking for traumas, right? So the paradox is the way to transcend, to move through this state of shock that the body is in, is to be present with the body and not to avoid it, not to get away from it, not to run from it, but to notice what's the feeling that's happening in my stomach, what's the feeling that's happening in my heart, where are my muscles, are they tense, are they relaxed? Where's my breath? Breath is huge. Where is my breath? Am I breathing? So you're noticing there's awareness of the body, and you're tuning into what's happening right now. What's happening right now? I'm sitting. It's quiet. I'm talking to you. I was in a traumatic situation that required all this fight or flight juice to be moving through my body, right? I like calling it fight or flight juice because it kind of describes everything. All this fight or flight juice to be coursing through my body. And now it's like, oh, that situation's over. So then it's like I start having this communication with my body. Like I'm literally like talking, like the body and me, whatever you want to call me, me and the body are having a conversation. And I'm like, hey, body, like, it's okay, you know? Everything's okay. Everything's going to be all right. Everything's fine. It's over now. I love you, body. I honor all of your sensations, all of your feelings, all of your impulses, all your hormones and your adrenaline. I honor all of it. I see that it's there to protect me, and it's there to make me feel safe and secure. Thank you, body. So we're kind of like we're having this communication. And then I'm noticing the stories. This is very important. I'm noticing the stories, right? So the stories are wide-ranging, and the stories are they're not crazy. I mean, they're all possible, right? This is going to put you in like financial ruin. You know, a lot of the stories are around money, right? Everything you wanted to do, you no longer be able to do. You've lost your freedom. You've lost your financial freedom. Stories that we're all familiar with, right? That we all know these stories that happened to us at different times. Fear-based stories. So I'm watching the stories, and the question will arise with every story that arises. The question is it true? Is it true? And as you watch the stories, what happens is what you observe is that when you're present, you're paying close attention, and you're breathing. You know, there's a thing with Byron Katie, the four questions in the work. You guys are familiar with Byron Katie? So the first question is it true? So there's a story and you say, is it true? And then the second question is it absolutely true? And my feeling is, why don't you just get to the heart of the matter, which is, it's never absolutely true. Is it absolutely true? No, never. There's no story that's absolutely true. You can never say there's a story that's absolutely true, especially if it's about the future. Right? That's pretty obvious that it's not true if it's about the future. When you're conscious and present and clear and you can notice it and look at it. Whatever story we have about the future is just a story. So any kind of like doomsday scenario, I'm not going to have any money, I'm not going to be able to survive, I'm not going to be able to be free, I'm not going to be able to do what I want. Stories. Stories of the past are also stories, and the stories of the past are connected to the stories of the future, because the stories we tell ourselves about the past are how do I say, they're kind of like embed us into the story we tell ourselves about the future. That makes sense? Like if that's who I am in the past, then that's who I'll be in the future. So they're connected to each other. So this is my story. But my story isn't true. It's never true. It's just a story. So I'm noticing the stories, and I'm noticing like, yeah, that could possibly happen in the future because of this. That could possibly happen in the future because of this. That could possibly happen in the future. And they're all not good, right? I'm struggling to find good stories, right? But what I'm noticing is that in observing the story, no, that's not true. That's not absolutely true. That's just a story. And then, as I move through all of those stories, no, not true, not true, not true. Okay, what's the opportunity here? What's the story that I want to create? What's the story that I want to create? What's the happy ending in this story, right? Because I'm the author of the story. So then I start to feeling like, well, yeah, this maybe is an opportunity to sell the car and make money, and then eventually get another car that's like more in alignment with me and what I want to create in this life. It's an opportunity to really explore trauma in a deeper way, which is such an area where we're so deeply stuck in the human condition on so many levels. So it's an opportunity to explore that with you. It's an opportunity to share with you how I move through it, how I help other people to move through it, support people in moving through it. It's an opportunity to be vulnerable. It's an opportunity to be authentic. It's an opportunity to be genuine. And it's an opportunity to connect more deeply with my body, to understand my body more deeply. I happen to be listening to, I'm a big fan of a guy named Laird Hamilton, who was a former professional surfer. And he's on the Joe Rogan podcast this past week. And I'm listening to it this morning while I'm working out, which, by the way, that's another thing. To be able to exercise, move the body is so important. To be able to exercise and move the body is so important. This trauma is trapped in the body, right? So it's kind of like stuck. So on a physical level, the way to move the energy is to move the body. The way to move any kind of energy is to move the body. So I was moving the body this morning, and that was really valuable. And then I'm listening to this podcast, and Laird Hamilton's talking about breath work. right? So first of all, I'm really excited because this is a podcast that's one of the most widely heard podcasts in the world. And the fact that this information is getting out to people about the value of breath work and how it can benefit people that are moving through traumatic states, or moving through states of shock, or moving through stress, moving through anxiety, is wonderful. It's wonderful, and it just inspires myself to continue to share the breath work workshops with Annie, which we've taken a little bit of a break from, but to really get out there and share the power of the breath, connecting with the breath to connect us to the natural state, the natural essence of who we are, body, mind, spirit, and move through traumas and move through states of contraction, states of resistance, states of suffering. And so there's another opportunity, right? It's like, to delve into this work, this breath work, and share it with people. This work that's so powerful, right? And to talk about it today with you. Where is your breath? Right? Breathe through it, whatever it is, breathe. So, may that be valuable to you. Share whatever questions or comments you have. And wish you a beautiful rest of the day. And see you in the next. Now, reminder, you can get this on iTunes. You can get this on wherever you get your podcast, where you have an Android or an iPhone. You can also get this on YouTube. You can also get this on Facebook. It's good to see a lot of you today I haven't seen in a while. If you want support from me, just send me a private message. It's the simplest way to do it. And there's a lot of different ways to plug in, whether it's a personal session, a private session, online group. Hi, Arlene. All right, y'all. Take it forth the rest of the day. Wish you a beautiful rest of your day. And see you in the next now.